Hello and welcome to this video. Today I'm going to decorate all of these little base cardstock forms that I got a while back. I already made one or two in a video where I made these pom-pom animals quite a while back, but for these ones I wanted to try all different techniques, which is why the video is a bit longer, but I didn't really feel like making it a two-parter or a three-parter, so here you go. You guys can enjoy an extra long video from me. I started out by taping the backs of these figures, painting the inside of the rings in the middle black. This is usually where the pom-poms are supposed to go, but I decided to add some little flowers. These are just some pressed flowers that I got in a kit from one of these resin things. And I'm just using some clear resin here. The tape is just normal bezel tape, but you can absolutely use clear packaging tape. Just make sure that it really is pressed onto the back. I did have a little bit of leakage and spillage into the cardstock, but it more so soaked in, so it was still fairly flat. And I didn't really have to sand much at all off. Now for the first two, I wanted to do some quilling. So I started off by applying two different rings around the insides. I didn't have the right size ring for the left side, so for the squirrel. So I had to cut one to size since I wanted to use the thinner orange strips of paper that I have. Also, I wasn't really sure if my paper was enough, since I'm using up all the leftovers from my previous projects, and I didn't really feel like buying new ones just for this. So, I really like to use up materials, but that means we're gonna experiment a bit with different colors and adding in some other colors than just the oranges and, maybe whites that you would expect. So quilling is fairly easy. You have this little stick that has a slot in it. You twirl around the paper, and then you have, in this case I have a circle guide, but you can also form these per hand. This one just really helps me to keep the shapes the same sizes, but you just glue one of the ends to form a little circle with a spiral inside, and then you can form it however you want. At this point I realized that I needed to paint the background now, because I couldn't do that anymore with the paper, so I decided to just go in with some basic whites and oranges to paint in all the shapes. And this actually quite helped me to get the arm shapes right, because that was a little bit more tricky. And after the paint was dry, it was just going back to gluing things in. I started off with just using the spirals and then applying the glue directly on the back, but later on I'm going to switch and applying the glue to my tile on the left. This is usually my paint tile, but it also has glue and all that kind of stuff. Just a leftover resin print, and it works super well for crafting. But yeah, I just went in, applied the glue to the back. This is just normal craft glue or PVA glue. And I just glued them down, trying to keep some of the shapes, for example, for the arms and feet. And then I noticed there's a weird little bump there. I think it was supposed to be toes or separate toes or something to the left, but I thought, hey, why not make it an acorn and make it as if the squirrel sits in front of an acorn. This is, first of all, due to me thinking of the shape immediately, and second of all, it has the nice little benefit that I can save up some of my other orange paper, since again I don't have that many strips anymore. So I used a darker yellow and then a golden color for the top. The yellow on the bottom is this half circle, and then the top also gets squished into a bread loaf shape, as you want to call it. And I'm just gluing it in place. It was a bit tricky for all these shapes to first of all keep them in the shape I wanted to, since they bounced a little bit from the paper having the spirals inside. And then also I was, a bit restricted by having the edges of the form, so like the paper needed to be on the edge of the pre-cut so that it didn't like look weird or wonky. And holding that in place took a little bit of maneuvering, especially on the arms, because these were larger. But, you know, I think it worked out really well in the end. Now the guide definitely helped me make all these shapes evenly, for example, like getting the arms an even size. And I'm also using tweezers here to really help get them into all the nooks and crannies with the folds that I pre-made. And that just really helped holding it in place. This PVA glue dries decently quickly or becomes tacky recently quickly, but I had to apply just a teeny bit more for the arm to like really make it work, and it was a lot of holding in place and pressing in place until it finally held that shape. The other arm was a little bit more simple, luckily, since I do have a little bit more like adjacent surfaces and not just edges there. But then it was time to move on to the tails. And for this one I wanted to have a little bit of a color variation and a little bit of a, not quite a gradient, but kinda. So I chose some like grays and a little bit of black, and I added that just to the tip of the tail, considering that in nature squirrels also have a lot of different colors in their fur, and I thought that would be fairly cute. And then, you know, you can see me just add the glue to the tile and then dip my piece in. And once I figured that out, it was the technique I mostly used. It was a bit hiccuppy at the beginning, and I needed to add some more glue into some of the spaces where I missed spots. And that was also due to like the spirals on the inside being loose and moving around, and I just needed to find a technique to hold them without squishing things, and you know, to just get the right amount of glue on there. But in the end it worked super well. I know there's a decent bit of people that actually use glue sponges for stuff like this, and that would probably also work really well, but you know, in this case, the tile technique here worked super nice too. Now for the inside of the ears I also chose the gray tone, and then for most of the face I'm going to have to use the yellow, because yeah, orange was very scarce at this point, but I thought, you know, having yellow at the face, like as if it's a bit lighter, or like almost like as if the sun hits there, also matches really nicely. But first I filled in the belly with a little bit more white, trying to keep to the paint shapes, and then I had like one last strip of orange that I formed to the large nose. And then I went in with the yellow and I formed these like curved teardrop shapes that really like nicely formed the whiskers, or like the side hair tufts that the squirrel's face has. And then I just filled in the rest of the shapes, trying to keep the like hanging hole on top open, and with that the squirrel was done. Now next up was the cat, and now that I had the practice, this one went by very quickly. And as you can see, I painted the base completely black, and I wanted to go a bit more abstract, still keeping like roughly the shapes like of the nose and things like that, but not going too detailed. And I decided, why not mix in some like blue shades, because first of all they were what I had most, and second of all I really like the lighting effect that a lot of people do when they paint black, where like the edges and stuff, or like the fur colors doesn't just have black, but it's like highlighted with different shades of like blues, reds, oranges and things like that. And I think it worked out super well, and this was even more freeing and fun than the last one. I tried to like kind of keep an eye shape and kind of keep an arm shape, but I wasn't really like constricted too much by it. It was literally just, you know, whatever shape I wanted to make to fill the spaces. And at that point, you know, I thought, hey, why not make the rest of them like completely different? I looked for my stash and looked for like a lot of the other materials I had, and at first I thought I want to do like a decoupage thing or something, but then I found that I have a lot of these colored petals and leaves. These are actually like just naturally this color. I just dried them, like some of them I just hung upside down, like picked out the flowers in the garden, hung upside down and let dry that way. Some of them I put the flowers into silica beads and dried them. Both ways actually work pretty well. But I found that, you know, if you want to hang them upside down, not all colors do keep their colors nicely. Some do tend to oxidize. So I actually like sprayed some of them with fixative, or you can use hairspray. It's basically the same, it just has like a scenting thing. And that just helped like keeping the flower petals from reacting with the air, since the air couldn't really get to them as much. And it helped keeping the nice vibrant colors in the drying process just a teeny bit more. Like they still definitely lose a bit of their vibrancy, but not too much, and it helps for when you don't want to like bury them in silica beads or something. And you know, having flowers in your house as a little decoration while you hang them to dry is also really nice, so that's an added bonus to this technique. But yeah, you can see I used like some larger brownish orange petals for the ears, then used some like smaller ones that I picked up for the insides. And then for the body I started off with this really pretty purple, and then I went in with this bluish green tone to like section off the arms and the tails. I also added a little tiny bit of white for the paws, and then I just worked my way up there. I'm trying to like achieve a beautiful little gradient for this fox, and I'm just picking out like lighter and lighter color petals, trying to like match all of them. Some of these petals, especially if they're like a bit thicker, they tend to crack a little bit or break a little bit. Some of the others I could like easily lay flat, but I really had to soak them in glue, or the backs in glue, to like form them again, basically hydrating them again. But in the end I think it works super well. And then for the face I used some vibrant white petals that I had, and I also added a little bit of a triangular nose that is slightly hard to see, but it is there. And then because I found I had so many lovely different colored petals left, I just wanted to go in. Also, it was so much fun. This was definitely like my favorite decoration technique. It was so relaxing, just dipping the little flower petals in the glue and applying them. It was a little bit messy, but you know, that was kind of also the fun of it. So I just went in with like reds and oranges that I had to form the other little squirrel. Again, going in, trying to shape the arms a bit and all that kind of stuff, and just trying to like add a nice little gradient on the face once again. And this was really just tipping out all the flower petals I had, searching out for similar colors and just applying them however I wanted to, trying to like keep a little bit of the gradient. And then I also used a couple of the bits and pieces to like decorate the tail end, because I wanted to add like a teeny bit more color. And when I saw the scraps, you know, it was perfect. I did trim the edges a little bit with a knife blade, and that was literally it. Like, very simple project, and you don't even have to use like a base form. You can totally go in and add like flower petals to a card to shape like cute little animals. Now at this point I had one more squirrel left, and I really felt like sculpting. And I thought, hey, why not use a little bit of paper clay to sculpt a really cute squirrel on here, because like I've worked with all these like kind of abstract shapes of art, and I really wanted to like actually bring out like the details, you know, the face and the arms and things like that of the sculpt or of the base plate a little bit more. So I chose paper clay because it dries super lightweight, And I thought for a wall or window hanger that would be ideal. And I knew it would be a bit more dirty because the head is clearly way too large. So I just added like a little bit of paper clay here and there to like give the basic shapes, you know, add a little bit of bulk to the tail and add a little bit of like bulk to like the paws and the arms, the belly. Also added like a little bit of a 3D effect on the ears. And I'm just using my fingers here. Paper clay usually blends out super well. And I'm also using my silicone shaper here to get all the rest of the shapes. So just, you know, blending them in, and once it's dry it actually is sticking like really well without adding anything else to the base of it. And that was like another major factor why I chose this clay. And I also wanted to add like a lot more of this like fur texture. I didn't really use too much of an accurate reference. I just, you know, went in and added some fur lines with my silicone shaper. And that really, like, I think brought out all the details a little bit more. Just, you know, having a little bit more of a, still like cartoonish, but still more like less flat thing for the shapes. So, you know, I'm not really going for realism here. I am going just for like having fun and adding the shapes. I didn't notice it here because the clay is white on white, but the eyes are a bit like off on one side, but that is totally fine. It just adds to the derp, and I still think that this guy looks super cute. He almost looks like he's meditating with how his arms are, but again, that is just what the base gives. And then after applying all the textures, it was time to paint him. I went in with some oranges and a darker brown and just, you know, painted all the sections in the colors that they're supposed to. The brown I found in the end was a little bit dark, so I lightened it up. I wanted to have like a warmer color. Like, looking at the video, it doesn't look too bad. It actually looks quite nice, but in person it was way too dark. Like, on the video, if it was that color, I would have absolutely kept it, but it turned really dark brown. And so I decided to lighten it in making a heavy wash of orange, just to give it a little bit more of, you know, a nicer, warmer optic, and that worked really well. And then I used some like grays and whites to add to the belly to like shade that a little bit, and also to the tip of the tail. In hindsight, like for the video, I wish I added a little bit more white back into the belly, but I still think he looks super cute with all these more warm, natural tones. And I also gave him a little bit of a like very diluted darker wash to bring out like the fur textures a little bit more, and you can really see how they pop on the tail and on the body. And then I just added some black to the nose a little bit and to the eyes before adding eye shines. And then it was just time to poke a little hole for the string, paint that a bit. And finally I added the toe beans in. These are, by the way, just shaped by a ball stylus that I pressed in there. And with that, all my projects are done. This was definitely a lot, but it was also a lot of fun to try to find creative ways to decorate them. The quilling was a lot of fun to like figure out the shapes. Quilling in general I really enjoy, because you can have so much fun with like placing the pieces and shaping the pieces. And the CAD turned out really fun too. Now again, as I mentioned before, my favorite is absolutely these like flower petal art. This was so simple but so fun and like so relaxing to just dip them into the glue and glue them down with like fun little gradients, trying to get some nice little shapes down. And I just love the vibrancy they have. So they're definitely my favorite project out of all of them. But I also really enjoyed sculpting this stuffy little squirrel. Now that the eyes are painted, you can really see how off-center they are. But I still think he's super cute. The camera definitely doesn't do like the shading as much of a justice as I applied there. Like, it has a bit more variation there in real life. I guess it just, you know, the camera settings and the lighting, it really didn't want to pick it up as much. But I still love it quite a lot. It is so adorable. Anyways, I hope you all enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments down below what you thought of all these projects and which one is your favorite. And as always, I hope you have a great day. See you next time. Bye bye!